Hello and welcome to my channel. This is effectively going to be the first episode of a new podcast I'm starting that's either going to be titled American Evolution, or Kill the Noise. Put in the comments which you like better. I'll read through some of those and determine the name within the first few episodes. Basically, the motivation for starting this is to discuss things that no one else seems to be discussing in a way that no one else seems to be discussing them. And by that I mean that my main goal here is just to kind of teach, explain, explore, discuss things based on reality, not what most discussions seem to be based on these days in the present, which are effectively complete nonsense. So that is my goal. As far as who I am, I'm going to keep my identity probably anonymous or hidden as long as I can. Effectively keep it hidden. I'm sure at some point it'll come out, but I think it'd just be safer to keep it hidden for the time being. So that's basically it. That's the prelude. The first thing that's really just like in my mind, the elephant in the room is really the elephant in the room. I mean, is Donald Trump. You see this guy, he's all over the news, he's the president, he's everywhere. He puts out media like crazy. What people don't really understand about Donald Trump is he's a con man. That's all he is. He was rich enough to be a super successful con man, but he is no business genius. He is no whiz kid. He is a man who was rich, who decided decided he had no qualms with being sleazier than his associates, and essentially has gotten ahead and even to is even become the president through employing those means. Essentially, he puts on an air like he is a business genius, and he does have a history of big financial endeavors. But the important thing is he started out essentially rich. I mean, not like today's rich, but certainly rich. A lot of money in New York, wealthy family. And then there were, early in his life, unsubstantiated, I haven't substantiated them personally through research, but apparently there may have been ties to his family and organized crime syndicates in the city. That's how he kind of got ahead in a business. In the building industry, and actually building buildings, because they can supposedly they control a lot of almost all the concrete being laid in the city was done through basically an organized crime syndicate at the time. I don't know if they're still active or even if that's completely the truth, but that is just kind of where this story starts. Besides that, it seems that he beat a case in which his family was racially, being racist against their tenants, were racially separating tenants by not not treating black and white tenants the same, or not having black tenants at all in some cases. It seems like he was able to beat that case through the combined effort of a lawyer whom he learned a lot from. And then he kind of turned his back on this lawyer and kind of took off into the sky by really just establishing this methodology where he promises everything in the world, and then really just, it's, I guess the best way to describe it would be kind of rug pulls the people who went into business with him, essentially. For a lot of his endeavors, a lot of these buildings, casinos, he has to get financial investors. So he makes a bunch of promises, gets a bunch of people to invest, and come to find out a few years later, the business isn't viable. It's not run well. It was never designed right. It was never ran well, and it's just not a viable business at all. So he essentially restructured his debt in a lot of these cases, that's where you get this story that you hear some people talk about, where he has 6 bankruptcies. His businesses did declare bankruptcy 6 times, and that was basically the deal. He was basically promising his investors the world. Completely promises he could never keep, which in a business sense, that's more than a promise. You're liable for those promises. So when the businesses start to take a turn for the worse, he would essentially give away like 50% of his ownership in the business to restructure his debt, which basically kind of cancels it. It keeps him from being personally financially liable for these failing businesses, and he's basically able to build a business, not be financially liable for it, use other people's money, and then in return for the other people's money, he hands them a failing business in the end. So how that turned out is only 2 of those 6 bankruptcies, those businesses that were associated with those bankruptcies, are still operational. He is currently not a part of those 2 businesses at all. I assume, one would assume he was completely kicked out. He does essentially shaft his investors pretty hard. He kind of rug pulls them on the back end, because they are basically left with a business which was never going to be, basically it'd be like building a business from the ground up and having a ton of predetermined debt, which is a terrible place to start a business from. So that's probably why the 2 businesses that are still operational, he's no longer a part of in any way, shape, and form. The other 4 were complete failures, but he has kind of sold this over the years as his kind of working the system, being suave and smooth, and kind of working the system. But essentially, he's just a rich kid paying his way through broken systems. He's got enough money for the lawyers to keep doing this. He's got enough money to get himself into the places where he can get all these big, stupid investors who aren't going to do their due diligence. They just, hear somebody talking big, and they gain confidence and then give them money. That is the definition of a confidence man, of a con man. So his real talent is essentially probably self-promoting. If you want to say he's talented at any one thing, he's maybe better than one thing than most people, it's probably self-promoting. But what real, in a rational, if this was a rational world, what real value would a promoter who can't fulfill any of their promises have? Not much. It's just in a really broken society that such a self-promoter could really kind of wiggle their way to the top like he has. But there is no great business acumen. He is no business genius. He's really just a worm, a parasite that was rich enough to start from a very elevated position, and he has leveraged that in his self-promotion to get himself where he is now, which is, and I want to make this point very clearly, to all of our detriment. Every American, anybody who cares about America, you should know you are being fucked right now, and not in a figural sense. You are literally being fucked. I mean, this man is. I was willing to kind of, after the failures of his first term. First of all, I would never vote for Donald Trump. He is essentially a media personality, basically a what's it called? A reality TV star. I mean, that is the other half of what he is con man and reality TV star. Which, if you start in a position if you're rich, it's not hard to become a reality TV star. The Kardashians have been doing it, have been the epitome of reality TV stars with zero talent. I mean, these people are literally freaks and monsters, really, and they are, some of the most successful reality TV stars in our lifetime. There is no reality to reality TV, and that's the problem. It's more about being. It seems like the success of reality TV is kind of tied to how freakish and outlandish it can be, because that's what draws people into watching it. They want to see something. It's like, whoa, this is crazy, and I mean that's really what you get. I mean, these freaks and monsters parading around doing things that none of us could ever dream of doing because they're so rich from doing the bullshit they're doing. But it really only works in a broken world. People shouldn't. I mean, people shouldn't accept it at all. It really just shows how broken our society has become, that stuff like this has flourished as it has. But in Donald Trump's case, so he's a reality TV star, and it's fucking us because, like I said, there is no. I was willing to let him. The first term, I would imagine as president, for the first 2 years, I would imagine a smart, intelligent president who was actually like the right person for the job would take 1 to 2 years to maybe adjust. That's that's a realistic time frame. If you have a retard like Donald Trump, you could give him 20 or 30 years, it wouldn't matter. He's still gonna be doing the same shit. That's all he does. He's a con man. But I was willing to kind of be like, all right, it's the second term. Let's see if he's kind of figured things out. Immediately, as soon as he dropped those 2 crypto coins for him and his wife, that was it. I mean, that showed you all you needed to see from the outset of this term. I mean, all this time, he spent zipping around the country, yelling about everything in tariffs. It was either tariffs or anything else that could get him attention. He was just out there screaming about. He could have been actually learning about tariffs, learning how they're applied, learning what they do, learning what the word means, learning how it affects the world, learning how to use them, learning how to apply them, reading about them in a historical sense, and talking to people who, have a better understanding than him. Because, I mean, ideally, you wouldn't want your president spending all his time learning about tariffs. You'd want him leading the country. But this man hardly knows what they are. It is just to him, it is a hammer to hammer everything with. And instead of actually learning how to use that hammer to in any realistic sense, this man was planning to release crypto coins for him and his wife. He's, um, having his lawyers negotiate with Netflix the highest fee ever paid to have his wife's documentary filmed and released to a single person, a documentary about a single person, the highest fee ever paid to a single person. You have him designing all these stupid ass throwaway Trump branded, I mean literally just garbage, personally branded stuff. I mean just all sorts of stupid shit. And then you have, not only does he come in, immediately announce that he's been doing nothing but talking during his campaigning. No actual work, just out there blabbing, like tongue wagging, just tongue wagging idiot. He's been doing no learning, no educating, no nothing. He showed us immediately what he's all about this term, which is making himself money in every way he can. I mean, he's turned America into the most expensive, I mean, literally America into the most expensive prostitute in human history, and everything's for sale. But on top of that, he immediately goes for these crazy things. No, it was not. I mean, for him to say, "I'm going to stop the wars on my first day," that's not even that. People should have beat him with sticks for saying that, because that's not even a realistic thing anyone could ever do. You can't phone call someone and stop a war. No one on earth can do that, because guess what? You can't call one person. You can't have one person call another person, no matter what. You can call anywhere in the world, but you can't have one person call another person and for them to disseminate orders throughout their entire army within a day. It's just not really possible. You need 48 to 72 hours. So for one person to say I can do it in 24, just not. I mean, people should have beat him with sticks, like upside down, hanging from his feet, for saying that, because it's just not. I mean, you shouldn't accept being lied to like that. Really, it's as American people, it's really, for him to be in the position he is, it's really, we should be ashamed, because we've kind of let it happen. Now, I take on a lot of the responsibility just because I tend to do that, and I'm kind of a person who can't sit by and let crazy, terrible things happen just because it's not really in me. So I may be, below 35, but I feel I feel ashamed for him being president. So if there are people walking around this country that are 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, I mean, the shame that they should be feeling that they don't is almost palpable in his absence to me, because, I mean, these people are essentially, I mean, just, how do we deal with these people who have let it get this bad? You don't turn a country, a country isn't defined in my 3 decades that I've been alive. I spent the first 25 of them figuring things out, and I've only been, like a adult on a brain level for less than 10 years. So it's certainly not my fault, but it feels like it is just because I'm a part of it. So for me to feel that way and to know I need to do something about it, and for so many other people to not feel that way and feel that they should do nothing about it, I mean, I'm not going to say how I feel like we should deal with these people, just because it would probably get this video taken down, but I don't think we should just, let them be. I don't think we should let them keep doing what they're doing, or shedding all responsibility and acting like they never played a part in this. I think that's probably the last thing we should do, or that's definitely what we should do if we want this situation to get worse, because it's only going to get worse from here unless we initiate significant long-term radical changes in every way, shape, and form. I mean, we have to redefine the government. We have to redefine what it is to be American. I mean, we are not free in any way, shape, or form. There is no freedom in America. They tell you it's the land of the free, home of the brave, but that's just because they have to keep saying it to keep you brainwashed, or else you forget. You forget this is America. You'd forget the name America. You forget that it was the land of the free, the home of the brave, because it's not any of those things right now, and it hasn't been. But I guess that's just a little tangent. Back to Donald Trump. Let's see. So, after kind of announcing to the country that he was only interested in getting even richer, even more wealthy. I mean, he's already got more money than he could ever spend. He's an old man. I mean, all our politicians, it is crazy we allow these people to be president. These are old fucking men. Put them out to pasture. I'm not saying do anything bad to them, but I am saying kick their ass out of the top echelons of the government. This man has to paint his face on to look human or even alive. There's nothing healthy in that. He looks like a freak show. He looks. I mean, it's literally like he looks like a carnival freak. You can see it on TV. They have to put makeup on him so thick to even make him look like he's not a week deceased. So we shouldn't have people like that in the government. I mean, it clearly hasn't been working, and there is no. I personally, and just from a rational standpoint, there is no benefit to having people as president who are only interested in amassing personal wealth. That's about the worst thing you could have, because what is happening now will always happen if you allow those people to get in those positions where they just sell off anything and everything to put money in their pocket. Which, if we want America to be anything at all in the future, besides a loose conglomerations of warring states, and I mean this in a very literal sense, if the country gets much worse, at the point we are in history, with the things that are about to happen with AI and automation and robots, and just the world being mostly digital, except in a physical sense, a lot of communication being digital, a lot of people's memories being stored digitally, digital photos, digital literature. Everything's going to be pretty much digital. Almost, consider all the services that used to be actual services that are now digital. It's like everything's kind of being converted to digital. We are going to be in a terrible state. I mean, pretty soon, within the next 2 decades. And I mean, like, a state that we will not recover from as a country. You will have states secede, and they will group up based on their personal interest. And you will have groups of states warring with each other, groups of states, making alliances with other countries. The 50 states will fall apart. We will lose our foreign provinces that are not technically states. We will lose our status as the #1 economy and the world currency, and all these things will, for hundreds of years after Rome fell, the world suffered for it. It will very much be a situation like that. Much of the world is still very uneducated, very illiterate and kind of unprepared for life, the life they will experience. And even people who grew up in America are stupid as shit. I mean, just to put it plainly, in a general sense, because they're never taught anything. Not because they're stupid people, just because they're never taught anything. You just go to school to learn how to be a robot, not to actually learn anything. But that's not a very good place. These aren't really hypothetical things. We're going to see these things start to happen in the next 10 to 20 years. Wars we get in that we have no chance of winning. Not that we can, like, they pretend like America has never lost a war. America has lost pretty much, we haven't really won a war since World War II. There has been no war we've gotten in that we've come out with really like, all right, we had defined goals that were worth going to war for, and we went to war, and we are now, the war is finished, and we have gotten out of the war with our goals achieved in any way, shape, or form. They have all been pretty much shit shows because they're just terribly mismanaged. America has been mismanaged for a long time, and I don't. God, I've gone off on another tangent. Basically, I don't think this is the entire fault of Americans. We've been, in a certain sense, in a very realistic sense, we've been way too open and trusting and accepting of pretty much everybody. Past generations have, to the people that are alive right now, to our very real detriment. And we see that all across society. But anyways, back to Donald Trump. Okay, so this guy, he does the crypto coin thing, and then he starts getting involved with these wars, which is just a waste of time. He can't really do anything. He goes around like, I'm friends with Putin, I'm friends with Kim Jong-un, I'm friends with Xi Jinping. Xi, it's late at night. Xi Jinping. All these guys are green. They're great. They're geniuses. We're friends. You know, he talks up these relationships, which I don't even understand why he would talk up these people. They are pretty much America's 1, 2, and 3 biggest enemies. So I don't understand why it makes no sense to me that he would promote these relationships, or that he thinks these are great people. It's absurd that he does, actually. That's something that we shouldn't accept. But anyway, so he is basically saying that he's going to fix these wars. So he spends the first part of his term, the first what I would describe as portion of his term, getting involved with these wars, sending his golf buddies to mediate between these countries, which has had no real effect. Putin was never going to just stop. Once America started really once it got to the point where we forced the Russian economy to not depend on us, then they just kind of were forced to depend on China. So since they'd already gone through that process in the first couple of years of the war, there's really no point for them to stop doing anything they are now until they meet their goals, unless they're met with overwhelming force, which we won't see in this tit-for-tat war, where anytime we send over equipment, Putin threatens nuclear response. That's not how you settle that issue. And then you have Israel, which is Netanyahu, which I haven't dug into Israel too much. I know a little bit about him, but I'm far from an expert. But it seems like Netanyahu has a extreme amount of control over the the government in his country, because this guy is basically a war raging lunatic, opening up warfare on 2, 3, 4 fronts, and just engaging country after country with a very small military that is propped up by is can only exist because America, Big Brother, we always kind of have our hand on his back in a sense. If that hand ever gets taken away, um, it wouldn't be too. It probably would be within a year or two. All these countries, Netanyahu is going wild against, basically, would probably group up together like they did in the past and try to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That's realistically what would likely happen if American support was withdrawn from Israel after a year or two. So, but basically, Trump has no control over that situation. And really, in a sense, at this point, I don't really see it as the duty of Americans to really spend our days worrying about those two wars. We have too many issues here. We are not safe in our homes. We're not safe on our streets. We're not safe at work. A lot of us don't have jobs. A lot of us aren't healthy. 1 out of every 2 men in America will get cancer. 1 out of every 3 women will get cancer. Only 15% of American children, born currently, will ever have a chance at being financially independent, and that's only those 15% are the rich kids, or basically the rich kids are all the rich kids whose parents have a bunch of money to support them through the first 30 years of their life, and that are smart enough to not screw up their basically financial positions on their financial backbone on their own. So it's really only the rich kids who are also smart, who are also pretty lucky considering they don't get hurt and have a bunch of huge hospital bills, and whose parents support them until they're 30 or 35, will ever be financially independent in America the way it stands now. The rest of us, we're slaves in a very real sense. We have no way to protect ourselves. Sure, we can go out and buy guns, but you having one gun is not going to protect you against the problems you deal with in America. One person with one gun is not an issue for the mobs of the gangs of police that roam around that can kill you for any and every reason and get away with it, for the other citizens that can just shoot you for any and all reasons, for the people that shouldn't be in this country that can do whatever they want because they are not governed by the laws of this country, because no one really knows that they're here. And you're not physically safe, you're not financially safe, you're not emotionally safe, you're not spiritually safe in this country. So we really have a whole lot more issues than wars in other countries that admittedly America did have some role in starting, but America is not propping up Netanyahu to keep warring around the Middle East. Netanyahu is manipulating American politics so he can keep warring around the Middle East. It's a whole machine that keeps up support and lobbyists and lobbying, and that's what supports him. America played some role in Ukraine, but again, Ukraine kind of wanted their independence. They kind of wanted to be separate from Russia, the people in Ukraine have always been, uh, Ukraine has kind of really been an independent part of Russia. Is maybe not in the strictest sense, but Ukraine is really like there is a lot of innovation. There seem to be a lot of Ukraine kind of represents an area of Russia where most of the innovative people, the smart people, the people who actually know what freedom is and value it come from. I mean, you're talking about a country that gave up their nuclear weapons when the Soviet Union, Ukraine was a nuclear armed country, and when the Soviet Union fell, America and Russia, in return for us providing Ukraine protection and their sovereignty, got Ukraine to agree exchanging their nuclear weapons. They handed them over. So yes, America very much played a role in the position they are now, but it's really, with how far it is from America, with the problems we currently face, and the kind of the willpower Putin has shown. He's kind of shown that he's just gonna keep pursuing this war until he gets a good outcome. I mean, realistically, if you wanted the war to end, I'd really look at a real reassessment. Like the people who want to, going in and saying, all right, the ones of you who want to leave, we will resettle you. You know, I mean, they are far from worthless people. They may not be in the most developed parts of the world, but they are far from worthless. I mean, I believe that no human being is actually worthless except for the ones that are trying to hurt other ones, which they, might have some worth in certain situations too, but they're certainly not worth protecting. But I think for the most part, a lot of people, most of the world should be protected if they're being invaded. So if you have someone invading their country, bombing their country, and they're relying on our support, it comes to a point where you have to just cut your losses and say, all right, it looks like most of your country is going to be destroyed. It's time to evacuate, cut your losses, get out, and restart somewhere else. It may not be, it's not having your cake and eating it too by any means, but it is certainly not the worst that could happen, which could be your entire country destroyed while you're still there, or your entire country enslaved. I mean, these people who have been fighting against Russian forces are not just going to be accepted Russian citizens. They will definitely go through what I would assume Russia would call, re-education, re-internment, but they would basically be enslaved or put in camps or, put in prisons. They're not just going to take all these people who have been at war for them and you say, all right, war is over, you're citizens now. There's definitely going to be the scars of war, and, the Russian people who have been suffering for this war will be demanding, getting something out of it. So a lot of times that in human history that takes the form of slavery, and usually slavery, or just stealing, selling, owning everything they have, and that extends all the way down to the people. So they will basically rape and pillage the country and steal the people if if Putin and Russia gets their way of it. So I think there could definitely be a better outcome, and that could be resettlement. That would probably most likely be resettlement, but fighting it like it is now, just this tit for tat war of attrition, is stupid, is pointless. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but not even the very dictated Ukrainian media, news media, can make up for the fact that there apparently are no males under the age of 30 anywhere in Ukraine anymore. It seems like they're all dead. There just are no there are no men under the age of 30 alive. I mean this in a very real sense. Ask yourself, when was the last time you saw a man, even 35 years old, walking on the streets or even in military uniform? A lot of these guys that are still alive are probably getting by on experience alone because they had, experience from other wars. It seems like there are really no men under 30 alive anymore. I would imagine probably 35 is the cutoff. You'll probably have some cases that you have men from 31 to 35 who have managed to survive this long, but below that, it seems like they're just gone, that they don't exist in Ukrainian society anymore, which is a pretty terrible and telling thing. But like I said, at this point, Donald Trump waving a wand is not going to fix it. That's an absurd, crazy thing to say, which I'll emphasize this. He should be hung upside down and beaten for, even saying such a thing, just because it's crazy. People should have rioted, at the places wherever he said such things. Like, oh, stop the war, all of a sudden the place goes up in flames. That's what should happen. But people really don't know how to act or what's right and wrong, so that's part of my mission here, is to kind of help redefine those things. But anyways, so he spent the first portion of his presidency screwing around with the wars, didn't get anywhere. They seem to be worse. They are worse. And then the second portion, he spent doing this trade war, which really wasn't so much, they call it a trade war, but it really wasn't so much of a trade war as it was Donald Trump continuously yelling tariffs while basically using the threat of them to coerce and extort people for money. Now, and it's very vague how a lot of well, first of all, there aren't a lot of, he's been talking, they talk about, like, news media, Donald Trump, and talk about deals all the time. There have not been a lot of deals done. It is a fact he has paraded a bunch of people through the White House who have probably paid a lot of money to be there and who have made a lot of promises, but those promises are not legally binding, and essentially anybody with enough money to pay Donald Trump's entrance fee essentially got a predictable massive rise in their stock price just for being in the White House. They go in there and say, we're going to build a factory, we're partnering with Donald Trump, we're doing this for America. They see their stock price rise, they knew it was coming. That's a huge thing to have. That's a very nice thing to have in a business sense. None of those quote unquote promises, well, not promises, they're not even promises, they're just Donald Trump yelling things that he'll one day deny. But none of those are legally binding. He just paraded whoever had enough money to pay the entrance fee through the White House. There were no actual deals done in a very real sense. And these kind of deals that he's peddling with other countries are really him just trying to make anything out of his effort of yelling tariffs and have something decent come out the other end. Nothing is, and nothing probably will. And like I said, the way this is turning out is he's alienated the United States against most of the world, most of our allies. And I'm going to be very specific here. I'm not saying in any way this is what should have been done, but if Donald Trump was a genius, savvy businessman even with no scruples, no honor, no nothing like that, he could. I mean, if he was a good businessman on any level, he could have come out straight out and said, all right, you have all these NATO countries, you are not footing the bill to protect yourself. America is. So ipso facto, we are the military for the quote unquote West, the established world. And what you would then do, if you really had, like I said, no shame about you, no scruples, is you would say, all right, now America, you would take a year or two to basically play up that these people don't have to pay to protect themselves. You would have them paying less and less of their GDP to bulk up the military, while you keep spending on American military. And the way you would start paying out some of this debt is you would turn the American military into a private military. And that's not even like the worst. I mean, that's not even like a terrible thing to do. It wouldn't be my first choice, but savvy businessmen would see that could have been done instantly, like from the get-go. So instead of this idiot going up there and said, you need to pay more, he should be coaxing them into paying less and paying us directly for our services and protecting them, because we are the only country who could at the time when he was put in office. Now you have all these countries grouping together and putting 5% of their GDP toward their military. They are very determined to to build defenses, to build a buffer between them and America's threats. And I do mean America's threats because that's what Donald Trump keeps doing. He just keeps coming out and threatening our allies, which is the stupidest shit you could ever do, because you will need those people at some point. But, I mean, just, putting aside his idiocy for a minute, a smart person who was, a smart businessman would have seen that he could have done that, and we'd be in a much better position now. We'd be at this point in his presidency, and anytime those people got scared, felt their borders were threatened, they would be paying American units to come check it out. And all you'd have to do, I mean, realistically, to kind of square that with the military, is kind of really have a conversation with your soldiers, with your war fighters, which I don't know why they call them that. It sounds ridiculous. Why would you call them war fighters if they're warriors? Call them warriors. War fighters, that sounds stupid as shit. But I'm not. That's just a label politicians seem to have put on military personnel. I'm not deriding military personnel, but I think you'd have a very frank discussion with your military personnel and say, listen, we are kind of converting. We're in massive debt. We need a way to get out of it. So we're going to be a private military for a while. So if you're in the American military from an idealistic sense, if your motivations are idealistic, then it may be best that we separate ways. Maybe we help you find another job that's not in the military, and for the soldiers or military personnel who that really doesn't bother, the payoff is they get paid. If you have countries paying us millions or billions of dollars to protect them, then you can pay your soldiers much more, $250,000 a year. You can pay them actual salaries, not force them to sacrifice their lives and limbs and sanity um, for pennies on their ideals. You could actually pay your soldiers decent wages like all private militaries in the world do. Now, if America is going to employ private militaries in mass and even, uh, just contract for really such huge portions of their military personnel, then this kind of conversion to a private military is completely plausible, doable, makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's like I said, a good businessman would have seen that and campaigned on it, not failed to see that this far into his second term. This and so back to the kind of trade wars. Instead of doing actually anything actually financially good for the country, you have Donald Trump. He's alienated our allies. He started all these trade conflicts. Most of the world is trying to figure out very realistically and logically trying to figure out how they can get by and work together and uh, basically without the U.S. Um, without so much U.S. influence, which is good for them, bad for us. That's going to turn out terrible for us um, when if we don't do anything, we still have these insane old politicians, presidents, whatever they may be, just being insane and stupid and doing insane and stupid things and getting us into trouble all over the world. Eventually, these people are going to realize that, hey, uh, America can't afford to fight a war long term, really has no taste for sending soldiers to die anywhere in the world that isn't. I don't really see American soldiers dying anywhere other than on American soil. In any large quantities. I think in a if a situation was pushed to that degree where American soldiers were dying in large quantities, like in a real war, not like the war on terror. That's not a real war. That was us going after. That was the U.S. military using the most expensive military equipment in the world to go after people uh, hiding in the mountains, which was absurd, just insane thing to do. Um, that wasn't a real war. There was no point where we did not have uh, uh, air supremacy. I mean, there were no there were you will hear almost. I'm sure there are a few extingent cases where there were units that could not get air support in extreme circumstances or uh, kind of gray or black missions where they weren't supposed to be somewhere at a certain time or in a certain place. But 99.99% of the American personnel over there had unlimited air supremacy. That is not a war. I mean, in a very real sense, that is not a war. That is someone with a giant shoe stepping on someone with a baby shoe. That's kind of an insane reference or metaphor, but that's a big shoe stomping a little baby shoe. It's not a war. I mean, in a sense, it's just guerrilla tactics versus an established military with the best equipment in the world and the most training in the world. That's not a war in any sense. That's really just us meddling in places we shouldn't be to keep uh, Americans focused on foreign issues instead of issues at home where we live, and realizing that none of us are safe, none of us are healthy, none of us are happy, none of us are, nothing about our lives is right in any way, shape, or form, but they use stuff like that to keep us focused on other things so we don't group up and discuss these things and decide to do something about them, which is what we should be doing. But basically, so Donald Trump basically alienates all of us, all of our allies. I mean, actually alienates us. Canadians are pissed, rightfully so. The Mexicans are pissed, rightfully so. Which isn't saying much. The cartel owns the Mexican government, but the Canadians are a problem. They've been they have been our number twos in everything we've done, and are on our northern border and have all the same military equipment we have, and could do massive damage at any time if they decided to. I mean, it wouldn't be good for them. It wouldn't be good for us. It'd be terrible for Americans and Canadians, but they could pose a significant threat at any point they wanted if they got mad enough. So I don't think our president should keep kicking them. And then, the southern border could completely become a literally a no holds barred, scorched earth war zone at any time, where you have the American military having to defend state borders from a cartel who has no, doesn't follow any war doctrine of any kind, who is fine with using biological weapons, nuclear weapons, anything they can get their hands on, which they can get their hands on, premium military equipment through premium American-made military equipment through third-party sources, which is a huge issue. So they can pose a significant threat at any time. It wouldn't turn out well for them, but it'd be terrible for both of us. But instead of kind of easing, after inflaming those relationships, Donald Trump decided to take his first trip out of country, which is typically the president's first trip is typically to Mexico and Canada first, because they are our bordering countries and quote unquote closest allies, because you have to be friends with your neighbors or else you have no, if your neighbors are out to kill you, you can't even pretend to be safe because the person next door is trying to kill you. That's just a realistic way to view the situation. So if those situations go bad, you can't even, there's no amount of media coverage that will convince people they are remotely safe in America, because people will be getting killed left and right on American soil. But instead of going to kind of repair the damage in relationships that he's done with his absolutely failed tariff coercion conflicts, I would call them, he decides to go to the Middle East. Why did he go to the Middle East? Well, you have the official story, which is because there are all these quote-unquote business deals that are happening where America is helping investing in a data facility in one of these countries. I didn't even bother to remember mentally, file which country it was, because how ridiculous. Why would we want our data kept in the Middle East? What sense does that make? Why would we take all our data, this massively resource intensive operation, and put it somewhere in the Middle East with people that hate us in the fucking desert? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'll probably say it a couple more times, in reference to any number of things because it is equally true to all the things I use it in reference to. But the stupidest thing I've ever heard, I'll say it again one more time here. And then you have these other vague deals that he's doing on behalf of America. But the kind of backstory here is, the real story is, Donald Trump went to the Middle East because he is basically licensing out his Trump brand, his name, so people in the Middle East, businesses in the Middle East, can make Trump branded hotels and casinos. The same thing he did here and failed at, he's going to do there, but he's not actually doing there. He's learned that he's terrible at it. He's not a good businessman, but he has got his name, made his brand big enough that he can license his name out. So he's licensing his name out. And that is the real reason he went over there. That and the bribe of that fucking luxury jet he's taking because Air Force One apparently isn't good enough. He can stand in this plane and host press conferences from it while it's in the air with no problem. But it's not good enough for him anymore, not as soon as there's a luxury jet being handed over. And it is not for America, it is very much for him. That jet being used is a serious, it's serious, it completely compromises the presidential security. There is no, anyone intelligent would assume that jet is bugged to the gills, audio recorded, video recorded, locations logged. Stop it, no, right now, stop it, go. The location being logged all the time, which is terrible. That completely compromises the presidential security. And he's not planning on doing anything about that, because to take that plane apart and actually determine if it's bugged or not, or if it is compromised or not, you'd have to take it apart. You'd have to basically make special scanning devices to put weird parts and pieces through. It would take 3 times longer and be 3 times costlier, maybe 5 times costlier than actually building, than the length of time it would take to build a plane from scratch, from the factory, in the first sense, and cost 3 to 5 times as much as buying a plane from the factory would cost. I mean, you're talking about putting a luxury jet, taking it apart, having thousands of people with clearances working for a year or two to scan this thing, to scan every piece and screw of this jet, to determine if it is actually leaking information, because it was gifted to the president, which is absurd, is an absurd bride for him to accept. That's just insane. You're talking about, this man has Air Force One. It's one of the most capable planes on the earth, and he needs one with nicer fittings. And he's willing to completely compromise presidential security. And the reason he's willing to do that is because when the new Air Force One becomes operational, the plane he accepted as a bribe will be donated to the Trump Foundation, or one of his, I can't remember exactly which, but one of his quote-unquote businesses or charitable foundations for his personal use after his presidency. That means in 3 years, Trump will be flying around in that same jet all over the world. He just wanted a nice personal jet that he could never get unless he was president, and he's willing to basically be a traitor to American, very literally be a traitor to America to get it. That's unacceptable. Like I said, I'm not going to say the response that should provoke in American citizens who want this country to be the America it was supposed to be, but people who understand kind of the sentiments I'm expressing should understand kind of, the reaction that you really only treat traders one way. You don't coddle them or babysit them. You really only treat traders one way. And, treason is one of those things where the scale of that punishment can be anywhere from standard to extreme with little regard to mercy at all. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because he is literally selling out America, American citizens, the military personnel. None of the people on those planes are going to be safe. He's not going to be safe. I've heard, this is unsubstantiated, I'm not sure if it's true, but I have heard or seen a couple pieces online that the plane may have to travel with an escort of fighter jets, which tells you that it's completely compromised. I mean, why else would they have to travel with an escort of fighter jets with, weapons to shoot anything down that they come across? That's because that plane is likely being tracked everywhere it goes and recording everything that's said on it, and probably even recording video of what happens in every room, from the how much the pilots are sweating to how much makeup gets put on that dead man's face before they make him look alive enough to be broadcast out to the world. So back to the Middle East. So that was the bribe, but the main thing was his licensing his name all across the Middle East. And again, this is substantiated, but I actually don't unsubstantiated, but I don't doubt this. Now, there really is no way to substantiate it because we have no, there has been no financial disclosure by Donald Trump, which every president should have to disclose everything they've ever done financially to be president. I mean, I'm not saying we should be choir boys, go down the list and nitpick every little thing. I'm sure everybody has financial stuff that they'd rather not make public. But when you become the president of the United States, you very much lose your privacy. That is one of the sacrifices you should be giving up. To refuse your country that sacrifice is a huge issue in my eyes. But anyways, what we're saying here, what I've been hearing is that Donald Trump has effectively doubled his net worth since becoming president. His second term, which I don't doubt it, because everything he does is either a commercial or just showing off his business deals, his quote unquote business deals, which are all concocted and kind of designed to do something in a financial sense. He comes out and says, "Oh, I don't even follow the stock market." Fuck yourself fuck yourself to death. No, I don't believe that. I mean, no one should believe that. I mean, that makes me so furious. You have the president of the United States, the man who should be looking at the stock market every day, saying the things he's doing are not done, that he's not only not following the stock market, but the things he's doing are not done to manipulate them. I mean, that says to me that you think so little, you think the American people are, just completely mindless animals. Like, that is so offensive to me. I value intelligence probably much more than most people. I've dedicated a lot of my life to studying, but just the stupidity that assumes of the American people. Everybody, he's assuming everybody that hears that is going to say, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense," and that makes me furious. Almost is, I mean, that thing that sets me off. There are numerous things. There are actually countless things that are happening that make me furious. But when someone is willing to look into a camera and say to the and lie to the country, and it not even be like it to be the dumbest, simplest, most inane, just completely ridiculous lie, that assumes an idiocy of the people that are going to see it that is so offensive to me that, I mean, I can't stand it. I mean, stuff like that is the motivation for these videos. So essentially that is the first episode. So we're going to cut it there. I've gone off on a few tangents. That will not be an uncommon thing in these videos. We'll probably have a theme, and we'll probably have a few tangents. It'll be very free flow. But what you always will get here will be the unbridled truth. If that is something that connects with you, if you feel the truth in my words in any way, shape, or form, it is, I mean, I have a problem with asking people for help in any sense at all, but for this podcast to fulfill my goals, which are to kind of get this country more educated and to a place where the people that live here understand what's happening and that they don't accept being lied to all the time. This is going to be a monumental challenge. Like I said, I'm hardly over 30. You can basically rightly assume that I have not nearly enough financial resources to protect myself from the blowback that's telling people the truth. The actual realistic facts about the situations in regards to these powerful entities and presidents and matters like that will expose me to danger. This channel will not survive without the funding of people who believe in it, and I mean, realistically, I probably won't either, but I'm fine with doing this if it costs me everything. Most people in the country, I have to believe, can feel that something's terribly wrong, and by something's terribly wrong, I mean that almost every aspect of our society is inside out or backwards. I mean, perverted in every way, shape, and form, and that the only way to fix it is to redefine who we are and who the country is, and to be united, and that is not, and that is, in doing those things, we will become completely different than the people we have been in the past, because the fundamental change is so, the shift is so different that it, it'll just, the things we have to heal this country are going to better us all. So that is kind of the reason I feel it's okay to ask for funding in this nature. But like I said, I'm ready to give it all. If this is something you support, which, I mean, if you're American, you should. Like I said, it is not something I'm diving into this episode, although it is extremely personally important. America was, this country was designed to be something that it is no longer. We are not free, we are not safe, We are not independent. We are not individuals. We are very much slaves. We are very much sheep. We are very much cold. And I think we all very much know that something has to change, or we will lose everything. Some of us have lost enough to know that we have to do this sooner rather than later. I mean, there is no now is always the time. Tomorrow will be infinitely worse. So that is kind of episode 1. That is who we are. That is our mission. If you listen to the end, thank you. And we'll be back in a day or two. Bye.